The doomsday situation that Philadelphia 76ers fans were dreading this offseason has officially came and went. And wait, what if I told you it's worse? This morning it was announced that Yabusele will be leaving the Philadelphia 76ers after his 1 year here and be traveling up to New York to play at Madison Square Garden on a 2-year, $12 million deal with the New York Knicks. And now this is a situation where over the past months, I think the Sixers fans kind of came to grips with that Yabusele would most likely be headed out the door. It seemed like if their main priority, their main goal of this offseason free agency wise was to retain Quentin Grimes, it would not be in the cards to bring back Yabusele as well. But with the deal Yabusele signed, 2 years, $12 million, the Sixers could have offered him that deal according to some reports on Twitter and potential cap space down the line. So it is a bit of a head-scratching move, especially with what teams like the Spurs, what teams like the Nuggets, who were kind of rumored to be interested in Yabusele, what they did in free agency, the money that they spent, and then for Yabu to still be sitting out there on the market as of this morning, it was very interesting to see him wind up going to New York. There was a tweet circulating this weekend as well from an Instagram post that Yabusele basically redid his apartment in Philadelphia. So signs were maybe starting to point towards it, but over the past few days, I think that was a little bit more optimism and optimistic feelings from Sixers fans, but it's been kind of, the writing's been on the wall for about a month now that Yabu would not be back. And now, obviously, this leaves the Sixers with a huge hole at the power forward spot. And it just goes back to kind of the main takeaway where it's very interesting to see him leave this situation. I think he had a great situation here lined up for the Philadelphia 76ers next year. He was going to be the starting four. He was going to have that ability to basically do what he did last year. Really impressed last year. I think outside of, I said it throughout last season, if you're going to take away what Jerry McCain looked like at the beginning, the biggest surprises and the biggest kind of glass half full type of thing were, I think, the play of Kelly Oubre and the play of Yabusele last year. Getting him from France, Daryl Morey and basically the Sixers giving him this opportunity and for him to play extended minutes, to shoot the ball as well as he did, rebound as well as he did, was really kind of the life and energy of that team for a good portion of the season last year. And for him to leave for basically a deal that the Sixers could have offered to him is a disappointing situation. We see here from RB, Gershon only signed for $6 million per year, and the Sixers could have offered him the 5.7 tax mid-level exception. So why not re-sign here? The Sixers better have a backup plan. So that remains the new question, the new scenario. And recording this around 7:30 on Tuesday night, the Sixers have not gone out and signed another forward. They did bring in Trendon Watford last night, but is that going to be your starting four going forward? I think as of right now, as of sitting here on July 1st, obviously things can change, but I think probably the ideal lineup will have Paul George being at the four, most likely like an Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Paul George lineup. I think that's probably what you're looking at today. But it is a situation that makes things a little bit more difficult. The one thing I kind of want to look at it with this, though, for roster construction-wise for going into next season, think about the guys at the four right now. Yabusele, if you had a full healthy lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, VJ Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, Joel Embiid, Justin Edwards, Kelly Oubre, the power forward wasn't going to be asked to score the basketball that much. Obviously, it's going to be a downgrade, I think, whoever is in there at the four, outside of Paul George. But for whoever the Sixers do bring in to eventually replace Yabu here, I think it's going to be a bit of a downgrade. But that guy's not going to be asked to score that much. That guy's going to be asked to eat minutes, rebound, and hopefully defend his position well enough that he's not a liability out there. Yabu was a plus last year. He was obviously a big surprise for the Sixers team. But big picture-wise, it's like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. This guy isn't going to be asked to go out there and score 15 to 20 points a night. If you're power forward coming off the bench, or if he's your starter, but even though he's only playing like 15, 20 minutes, I doubt this guy is going to be in the closeout situations. If he's only averaging 5-6 points per game, that's not the end of the world. I think you're going to be able to get a guy out there on the cheap, on the minimum, and he's just going to have to eat minutes, rebound the ball, and play his position well enough on the defensive end not to really just get ran off the floor. So while it is kind of, an oh shucks, like that they lost Yabusele, I really don't think it's that big of a deal, big picture-wise, as long as, your roster's healthy. And, knock on wood with saying that, the Sixers have obviously struggled with health over the past few seasons, specifically Joel Embiid. But big picture-wise, this guy's not really going to be asked to do that much, whoever his replacement is at the end of the day. So the question goes to kind of what's next, just to look back at what Yabu did last year with his minutes with the Sixers. 11 points, 5.6 rebounds. I thought the most impressive thing was his floor stretching, being able to shoot 38% from three. But the Sixers gave him, a legit chance to revive his career, and good for him for making the most of that opportunity. Remains to be seen. It's been speculated, it's been reported, but the Sixers basically are contingent on signing Quentin Grimes at this point. That's what their goal was. That's what their main goal number one was. And Yabusele didn't really want to wait for the market to dry up anymore. So he basically kind of said to the Sixers, it sounds like, if you're going to sign Quentin Grimes your priority, I'm going to go elsewhere. Even if the offer is similar. The Sixers might not have even officially offered him just because they're trying to wait and sign Quentin Grimes. But, hopefully now you're signing him. If you don't bring back Quentin Grimes, it's going to make this Yabusele situation a lot worse, look a lot worse on paper, but just optics-wise as well. But, it's going to be some production to fill in next year. Like I said, I think Yabusele was one of, if not the lifeblood kind of that Sixers roster last year. And that just, looking at his numbers here, 11 points, 5.6 rebounds, and we're calling him the lifeblood of the team last season. In stretches, obviously Tyrese Maxey, carried his weight. But outside of that, besides Jared McCain's kind of stint, I really think Yabu and Kelly Oubre were kind of your two main guys last year. Quentin Grimes, a cup of coffee there down the stretch for the Sixers after the deadline. But it was a fun player. It was a player, you enjoyed rooting for. It's going to suck to see him in New York. An interesting spot. I think he's in line for less minutes probably up there. But now you can't really look at this situation anymore. You got to look really kind of, what's next? How do we replace Yabusele now? Who's out there on the market? Shout out to Jacob Marino here for throwing out a few guys that the Sixers could be in the market for. But a guy like Chris Boucher, a guy like Larry Nance Jr., Trey Lyles, Precious Achiuwa, and Bol Bol. Miss me with the Bol Bol most likely. But my two probably top picks on this list, Trey Lyles and Precious Achiuwa, I think. Even if we'll see, potentially look to maybe bring in both. I'm not sure if that would fit into the cap if you're bringing in both of those guys on a minimum, but I think they're a good kind of trade-off. Trey Lyles can still shoot the ball really well, shot the ball 38% from three last year. Just needs to rebound, though. The shooting isn't that big of a concern or that big of a need in this lineup with the Sixers. Hopefully all things go to plan, and they have their scorers, they have their shooters out there. Precious Achiuwa might be more of a fit. Plays really hard. He's going to rebound. I think he can hold his own defensively. And I think he's a good fit around what the Sixers have, like athlete-wise. He's a lob threat as well. But he's not a guy that you're going to say, go sit in the corner and shoot threes or go get the ball in the block and go get a basket. He's going to do the dirty work, and I think that's what the Sixers need more so in this lineup because there's only one ball to go around, and Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, those guys need their shots. If Embiid's on the floor, obviously he's going to need his shots. That's, just say if all goes to plan, Embiid healthy, 25 points per game. Tyrese Maxey healthy, 23, 24 points per game. Paul George healthy, 17, 18 points per game. Quentin Grimes, 12. Jared McCain, 12 to 15. VJ Edgecombe, 9 to 10. Like, you're really not going to be asking for much points production out of these other players, out of these other forwards. So I think a guy like Precious Achiuwa really fits in the mix there well. It gives the Sixers some toughness, some rebounding, and some size there at the four that they don't really have on the roster as of this moment. But this is a situation that's going to be fluid, over the next week or so. I would assume the Sixers would get this ironed out and get this power forward spot kind of figured out. But Wofford was a nice pickup. He'll be an interesting addition to the mix, but I still think that the Sixers are lacking a little bit of rebounding and size there at the four spot. But Yabusele heads up the I-95, goes to the New York Knicks, and will now be, I don't think people are going to hate him for doing that, but obviously you're going to be rooting against him going forward, and it's a shame because he was a fun player for Philadelphia, but I do think situation could be a lot worse if Quentin Grimes does go elsewhere and the Sixers don't match kind of his offer sheet, because I think the main reason why Yabu's gone is because the Sixers were trying to commit to Quentin Grimes over him, and he wanted to get paid, get his money, and make sure he was taken care of as well for the really good year that he had last year. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you going to miss Yabu? Are you going to hate him now that he's a New York Knick? Who do you want the Sixers to go out there and get at the four? Let me know in the comments below. Please drop a like. Please drop a subscribe. We'll talk to you next time here on Sixers Digest.